In this video, I'm going to show you how to show your work for selected questions in discrete mathematics using McGraw-Hill Connect. As you can see here, I'm on the student view for discrete mathematics using McGraw-Hill Connect. So this is what it should look like for you as well. And notice a couple of things. First, on the left, you can rent a bound book, but obviously you don't need to do that. You can just click here to read the actual textbook, which will just open in a new tab. This is the textbook that we are using, Discrete Math and Its Applications, 8th edition. So I can click on that. I can also purchase a discounted loose leaf copy of the course text by clicking there. I did not include any of the recorded lectures in this part of your course. You can get to those in your Blackboard shell. Here are all of the assignments for the entire term, and as you can see, there are 11 of them. And a couple of things I want to point out before we actually look into an assignment is some of the homework assignments are over 4 sections, like homework 1, and some of them are only over 2 or 3. In general, it's about 5 points per section. So homework 1 is going to be worth 20 points, whereas homework 3 is only going to be worth 10 points. You get the idea. Another thing I want to point out is on this page, you can see the due dates are listed in Central Daylight Time, but here's what I want to point out to you here. This says due March 19th, 2022 at 2 a.m. Because it's due at 2 a.m., that means officially the due date in Blackboard that you'll be able to see when you access the course shell and see the course calendar, you'll see that this has a due date of March 18th. Because that's the due date. It is due on March 18th. You have until 2 a.m. the following day to complete it. So the reason I'm pointing this out to you is I invariably will have a student that emails me and says, "Oh, I forgot to submit the assignment. I thought it was due on March 19th. Please don't be that student. Now let's take a look at what happens when I actually click on a homework assignment. It's going to bring up some summary information about that assignment. I want to point out to you that it says requires instructor grading. That's why I'm making this video, is to show you how to do those specific questions. And then it also has the other assignment details that I have unlimited attempts, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and how many points, 20 points. The homework 8, for instance, does not have that requires instructor grading, which means, yes, it's still over those 4 sections, and it's still going to be worth 20 points, but there aren't any questions that I feel that I need to put my eyes on to make sure that you're doing them right. This particular homework assignment is over probability, so I don't need to check work on probability, because if you have the work correct, you're going to get the outcome correct. Whereas homework 1, I did have a question I wanted you to actually show some work on. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Begin. And when you click on Begin, it's going to take you to another general page that has all of the information that we just talked about. 20 points, due date at 2 a.m., what current attempt 1 of unlimited, and then I can use check my work, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and click Continue. And the very first question on any assignments that have an instructor graded question will be the question that I'm grading. They all should look very similar. This one says homework 1 file submission PDF. So I'm going to just download whatever file I'm asked to download. And in this case, that is the homework 1 file submission. And this particular question has to do with logic gates, which we learn about in section 1.4. So if I'm just getting started on section 1.1, I'm probably just going to save this to my desktop and then go from there, because I'm not going to skip ahead and try to complete this question when I don't know what I'm doing yet. I'm just going to go back to section 1.4 and continue. Now, I do want to look at a couple of questions with you just so you can kind of see the format. This particular question says, what time is it? The question says, is this a proposition or not? So because this is a question and it does not have a truth value, this is not a proposition. So the truth value does not exist. Now, when I go on to the next question, it's not going to give me whether or not I got the last question right. So let's say I'm looking at this one. The moon is made of green cheese. That is a proposition, and the truth value is obviously false because it's not made of green cheese. Hopefully you know that. But let's say it's a question that I wasn't quite sure about, and I really don't want to go through the rest of the assignment without knowing that I'm right. I can use the little check my work option. You can do that 3 times only throughout each assignment. So I'm going to click check work, and checking work gives you what you did right and what you did wrong. And obviously I did everything right here. Now, there are 56 total questions. I can continue my way through this. If I click on references, it's going to tell me this is chapter 1, section 1.1. So this can kind of tell you, which questions you should be continuing or should be able to complete based on which videos or which chapters you've already watched. You can also click on the ebook. In general, I find that the hints are kind of silly. Hey, what's the definition of a negation? So those aren't going to be super helpful. But you can go ahead and click on the 9 squares, which takes you to this page, which means I can fast forward and click on specific questions. The reason this is helpful is if I've skipped a question or if there's one I wanted to come back to, I can do that very quickly. So I'm going to go back to question 1 and talk about what that looks like. So I have a PDF open here, and I have this open in Microsoft Edge. So whether or not you're a Mac person, a PC person, you use your tablet for everything, it doesn't matter. Everybody's going to get the same PDF. So if you're on a computer, whether that's a PC or a Mac, I suggest downloading Microsoft Edge. The reason I suggest Microsoft Edge, it's not required. You can use whatever PDF annotator you want. I used to use Drawboard all the time, which is also a great program. I really like Microsoft Edge because it has this across the top. I can click on any of these values. And so, of course, the main one here would be that I'm going to click on the Draw tab. So I can click on the Draw tab and I can complete my homework. I can draw right on the screen. I'm using a Surface to do that. So that's very easy because I can draw right on the screen. Some of you are using a Wacom tablet, and that's fine too. Again, this should work with that. So again, I would be entering in what the outputs are, and I'm not going to do that. And doing that for each of these questions. So I would enter in some outputs for each of these in the logic gate. So when I'm all done with that, I want to save it. But actually what I want you to get in the habit of doing, and this is specific to Microsoft Edge, if you're using Drawboard, there is a function where you can choose to flatten annotations. If you're using Zodo, which is a nice free PDF annotator, again, you can flatten annotations. Unfortunately, Edge doesn't have a flatten annotations option. So what I want you to do, instead of just clicking save, I want you to click print and then print to PDF. So this is Microsoft Print to PDF, but if you're using a Mac, they have the same options there, and I'm going to print. And then I'm going to just save that as homework 1 or whatever. You can do your last name, homework 1, and I'm saving this to my desktop. If I go back to McGraw-Hill, I can now click on choose file. I'm going to click on Brame homework 1, which is the file I just saved, and click save. Make sure you click save. If you just attach it and you don't save it, it doesn't actually attach, and I have nothing to grade. Now, before I am done, I want to show you up here that I have 2 options. I have save and exit, and I have submit. So if you are, say, just working through section 1.1 that day, as I suggest that you do, you can save and exit and then come back to it, and all of your work will be saved. I'm not going to do that because my work won't save because I'm just a fake student in the instructor view. I'm just a fake student. But I can go ahead and submit. Now, obviously, you don't want to be this person who has 53 incomplete questions, but I'm going to go ahead and submit. And when you submit, that means you cannot get back to your assignments. You can't get back to it because it's now submitted for grading. So only do that if you're all the way done. Now, I do want to point out to you that if you have forgotten to submit, if you worked on section 1.1, 1.2, etc., and then the due date comes and goes and you forgot to submit, it does submit for you when the due date hits. So don't worry if you forgot to submit. I still should be able to see your homework, anything that you actually got done. So when I look at my results, notice here it says pending because this is worth 2 points and I won't be awarded those points until after the instructor has graded it. And I can't click on show correct answers because I didn't give the correct answers for those questions. But I can click here and I can see that I got question 2 right and question 3 right, but I got all of these other questions wrong because I didn't do them. Now, what you can do is then you can look at the questions. It will give you an idea of what's right and what's wrong. And you should be able to, not after you've submitted, yes, after you've submitted, you should be able to then go back in and I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this. You should be able to go back in and continue this assignment. So I suggest doing that. Now, it's for me, when I click begin, it's going to show that I haven't done anything on the assignment, I believe, again, because I'm a fake student and not a real student. So notice it shows that I'm basically starting over. But for you, it should show current attempt 2 of unlimited, and you should then be able to go back and edit any of your previous questions that you attempted. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of how to complete your work. The last thing I want to point out to you is that if you are doing this homework question and you are more of a paper pencil kind of person, then of course I would suggest that you print this out, complete it on paper, and then I'm going to include another video that will help you with how to get those back into a good PDF for grading.